IT admins, what if I told you that a stolen signing token could give attackers full access to your Cloud PCs or AVD session hosts with no password required? Today, I'm going to show you how Entra ID Token Protection keeps a Windows 365 and AVD session host locked to your devices, your users, and your control. So, what is Entra ID Token Protection? Think of your Azure Virtual Desktop session host or Windows 365 Cloud PCs as your own personal office in the cloud. To unlock it, you need a special magic ticket called a token. But here's the risk. If someone steals that token, like a man-in-the-middle attack, they could sneak into your session without even knowing your password. That's where Entra ID Token Protection really comes into play. It's like adding a digital fingerprint to your token, so it only works when you use it on your device. If I take this token to another device, it won't work. Even if a hacker tries to grab it, the token is useless to them. Your Cloud PCs and AVD session hosts stay locked down, safe, and ready for business. In short, Azure Virtual Desktop plus Windows 365 plus Entra ID Token Protection equals secure access, no pirates, no surprises. And if you're new to the channel, then welcome. My name is Neil McLaughlin. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365. And on this channel, I talk about security, Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, Intune, Nerdio. If that's the type of content that you like, please click the like and subscribe button. And now we'll get into today's video. Today, we're going to talk about Entra ID Token Protection. We're going to show you how to enable it, and then we're going to show you how to test it. Okay, so we're going to actually show you whether it's working or not, because it's not easy to see whether it's working or not. First, let's have a quick look at the documentation and see what we've got, and then we'll talk through what licenses are required. We'll talk through how to enable it, and then we'll actually go ahead and enable it and then test it. Okay, all right, so if we look at the documentation, it's in preview mode, right? So it's not GA yet. I mean, you can see here as well, it's about conditional access. So we actually enable this feature through conditional access. It's a tick box on your conditional access policies. And as we just spoke about, it reduced attacks by using token theft. Okay, so we make sure that if we're doing a man-in-the-middle attack, or if someone gets hold of that token, they can't reuse it to gain access to your credentials or to gain access to your session host or Windows 365 desktop. Okay, we're going to go through all this. We'll do this in my environment. I'll show you the settings, but that's essentially how we enable it. So we need a P1 license for this. Okay, so that's the lower tier of the Entra ID licenses. So you get P1 and P2. I did read in a few places that in preview this is going to be P1, and then when it goes GA, it'll go to P2. So just be wary of that. I'm not too sure how that is. I don't know why they put something as P1 in preview and then move it up to P2. That doesn't make any sense. So I've got a feeling that it will stay in P1. But you can say you need Windows 10 devices that need to be Entra joined. Okay, so this is the key thing here about this feature. The session host that you're accessing your desktop from needs to be joined to Entra ID. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay, so that can be hybrid joined. It can be Active Directory joined and registered, but it needs to be joined to Entra ID. If it's not joined to Entra ID, if it's a bring your own device, just someone's home PC, then it will not work. Okay, so it wants you to access it from a secure device. So I know that could be a blocker for some people, because if they use BUID, they may use their own personal device, which not be registered against Entra ID. Some company policies do enforce it. It's a security thing, really. Okay, so yeah, a bit of the limitations there. Now, what is quite interesting is it says here, device registered with Entra ID using the following methods are unsupported: Microsoft Entra joined AVD session hosts, okay, and Cloud PCs deployed that are Entra ID joined. Right, so yeah, it's basically saying that the session host that you connect to can't be Entra ID joined, which confused the hell out of me, because surely that's more secure, but hey, but if you watch a bit later in the video, you'll see what happens when we actually connect to a Entra ID joined session host, one that it says is not supported. Okay, all right. So yeah, you can also do exclusions, right? Microsoft recommend if you are using this within your conditional access policies, you can exclude virtual desktop session hosts that are Azure AD joined. Okay. So that's possible. We can take a look at that. Yeah, and basically we just create a conditional access policy to enable this setting. So that's what we'll do next. Then we'll log on, test this, and then we'll show you what happens when I connect to a device that isn't joined to Entra ID, and what happens when you connect to a device when it is joined to EntraID. Let's have a quick look at the configuration settings. So I'm in my Azure portal at the conditional access policy screen. This is a brand new environment, by the way. I've just rebuilt my whole environment. New tenant, new subscription, new everything, right? So things are a bit empty. So I've got two policies here. One which is one of the default ones, which require MFA for all users, okay? And then I've got this AVD token protection policy in place. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to see what settings are in here. First of all, we need to do target assignment, okay? And what I've done is I've assigned it to a specific user, okay? So that's my user account. And yes, I am doing bad practice by using my main account as a test account, but I've not had a chance to set up any other accounts yet. You can put exclusions in there as well. So the recommendation is any admins or break glass accounts, you put those in the exclude because while you're testing this, because you don't want to obviously lock people out of stuff. Okay. All right, and then we've got free target resources. So these are free here as well, right? The resource that we're applying this conditional access policy to is Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, and Windows Cloud Login. Okay, so they're the three that you need if you want to use this for Azure Virtual Desktop and also Windows 365. Okay, so then we've got network, which are not configured. We've got a condition. All right, so the condition is only include Windows devices, right? So this doesn't support anything like Android, iOS, Windows Phone, Mac OS, or Linux, right? So be careful here as well, because obviously you don't want to apply the policy to those devices. It will break them, so you may want to put an exclude in there on this policy if you do have those devices inside your environment. Otherwise you may have issues with people unable to connect to Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365. And then here's the bit where we're testing it, right? So you can see here I've got a tick box here, so require token protection for sign-in sessions. So you just click higher, it'll tell you what that setting is. Obviously you can do other stuff in there as well, but we're not going to go into this on today's video. Now, just to reiterate what we've done here, so we've got a conditional access policy. A conditional access policy looks at your signing details. So when you try to sign in to access a service, it's like a checklist, right? It'll say, are you from here? Do you have this? Okay, so what we're saying here is my my specific users, which is me, my target resources, which is the Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 service, conditions. The conditions are it's a Windows device. If it meets all those conditions, so if I'm logging on to a Windows device and accessing the Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365 service, we're going to say in that session, I want you to force token protection. That's essentially all we need to do. Now, we recommend from the reports only tab that will enable you to test this. I've just gone straight to enable because it's my dev environment, so I don't really care if it breaks. As long as I can get into the Azure portal, I'm good. So that's the policy in place. So now let's go and test this and see what happens when I connect from a device which is not joined to Entra. This is the Windows app. You need this to get this working. This is my other environment. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to go to the admin at virtualmanc.co.uk, and I'm just going to try and subscribe to that workspace to Azure Virtual Desktop. Okay, so let's see what happens. I've done that, and it says that's my password. So I put my password in, and let's see what happens. So it's come back and said register or enroll your device. It's saying to access this Azure Virtual Desktop session hosts or Windows 365 devices, I need to register or enroll my device that I'm connected from into EntraID, to the environment that you try to connect to. Okay, so that's the security feature. So you need to be aware of this one, because obviously if someone connects from their bring your own device, it's not going to work. Okay, so it's essentially a security measure, because we're saying only allow people to connect from devices which I'm managing. Okay. All right, so that's what happens when I try to connect there. Now we'll look in the log and see what we see. Okay, so we're in the EntraID signing logs. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got a failure. All right, so it's saying resource Azure Virtual Desktop, the application, which is the Windows 365 client, which is the Windows app. All right, so let's dig into that and see what actually that looks like. So what it's saying is single factor authentication status failure reason access has been blocked by conditional access token protection policy configured by this organization. Okay, and then we'll just have a quick look. So say a Windows client trying to connect to Azure Virtual Desktop, and it's classed as a mobile apps desktop client site. You can see here token protection sign in session unbound. So that's basically saying I'm denying you because you're not part of EntraID. You're not joined to or registered with EntraID. We can see the location where I'm coming in from and device info, and then basically tell you here the conditional access signing token protection reason failure. So that's why we're getting blocked. And then you can come in here and see it's showing us what the matches are, and there you go, the session controls not satisfied. Yeah, because I'm not on the device which is connected to EntraID or registered against EntraID. Alright, so that's what it looks like when it fails. So now let's go and have a look like when it actually works. Okay. So now we are on a device which is joined to my EntraID. You can see here it's Azure AD joined. Now think about what I just showed you in the Microsoft documentation where it says connecting from or connecting to EntraID joined devices is not supported. So essentially what I've got here, what I'm connected to is a EntraID session host. Okay, so let's now give that a test and see what happens. So remember last time when we tried this, it failed. Same user account that we're using to connect to. So I'm going to connect, and this time it's let me in. Okay, so we are connected in, yeah. And just to show you this session, as you can see here, Azure AD joined, yes. So I can only presume the documentation is wrong, and you are able to connect to EntraID join session host. So this seems to be working perfectly fine. So now let's go and look at the log files and see if we can see any difference from what we saw earlier. Okay, connected to the session host using EntraID token protection. So let's go and take a look in here, shall we? So what we're going to look for is we're just going to do a refresh. It may take a bit of a while to go up, so what we'll do is look at one that happened earlier just so you can show the difference. Okay, so here we can see a success. Let's click into one of those and see what that looks like. Remember last time we had a failure, so this time we still do single factor authentication. Additional details, MFA required by claiming token, username, so that's the same username. Windows 365 client, so that's the Windows app, resource, Azure Virtual Desktop. Token protection session says bound, status code 0. That essentially means it's let us in. Okay, so if you see, this means the EntraID token protection and it is working. We can see the token issue type is still like Microsoft EntraID, and the incoming token type is PRT, primary refresh token. Conditional access, you can see here, signing token protection equals success. If I just click on that, we're basically saying we're matched there, we're matched there, we're matched there. Session controls enforced. Required token protection for signing sessions. You don't see anything from a user perspective, but just be safe to know that it does give you a lot of extra security. So if you do have a Microsoft EntraID P1 license, which you should have if you have a E3, or maybe in the future you'll need a P2, which will need an E5 license, and if your hosts where you're connecting from are joined to EntraID or registered against EntraID, then no brainer to enable this, because it just adds an extra level of security to your Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365 state. Token protection is applicable to other services as well, so they've added that for Azure Virtual Desktop, but it's definitely a big step up in security to stop that sort of man in the middle token theft, which can enable people or hackers or ransomware into your environment. Okay, so definitely stops that in the tracks. Alright, so that's it from this week's video. I hope you found it useful. I hope you've learned something. If you have, please subscribe, and I will see you next week.